Hello. Today we'll be working on Word 2013 Lesson 5 Managing Text Flow. More specifically, we'll be working on how to set up columns. So, columns are vertical blocks of text in which text flows from the bottom of one column to the top of the next. Newspapers, magazines, and newsletters are formatted in columns to add an interest and improve readability. Text formatted into columns produce shorter lines and white space between columns. By default, Word's documents are formatted as a single column, but you can change the formatting to display multiple columns or columns of varying widths. So, we are going to be using the last exercise that we worked on, which is checking choices. So you should open that from your Miss Dale folder. Mine is right here in my recent documents, so I'm going to select that one. And we're going to be working on this particular document. We are going to change the left and right margins to 1 inch. So I'm going to the Page Layout tab, Margins. I'm going to hit Custom Margin, and I'm going to make sure that my left and my right, instead of saying 2, will now say 1. I'm just going to hit my down arrow. Once I've completed that, I'm going to hit OK. We're going to place our insertion point in front of the F in free checking on page 1. So right here in front of the F. On the Page Layout tab in the Page Setup group, we're going to click the drop-down arrow to display the Columns menu. The Columns menu appears, and you'll notice that we have some preset column settings. The More Columns option opens the Columns dialog box. We're actually going to select the 2 preset setting. You will notice the text in the document is formatted into 2 columns. Notice the Senior Preferred Checking starts at the top of a new page because it is still formatted with page breaks before. So as I scroll down, you'll see the Senior Preferred Checking option. We're going to save this document. So I'm going to File, Save As, and I'm actually going to change the name. So we're going to go from OneDrive, Houston County Board of Education, Browse. I'm going to navigate to my Miss Dale folder, and we're going to name this Checking Draft. So instead of Checking Draft. Now, the next thing that we're going to learn how to do with columns is we're going to learn how to format them. In addition to Word's common column formats, you can customize column formats to fit the text and the purpose of your document. By default, when you click the Columns button and select from the Columns menu options, the whole document is formatted as columns. Using the Columns dialog box, you can apply column formatting to the whole document or a selected part of the document only, as you also can change a document formatted in multiple columns back to a single column document. So I'm going to click on the Columns drop-down menu and kind of go through these with you. When you select the preset of 1, this formats the text into a single column. 2, which we have currently on our document, formats the text into 2 even columns. 3 formats the text into 3 even columns. Left formats the text into 2 uneven columns, a narrow one on the left and a wide on the right. Right formats the text into 2 uneven columns, a narrow one on the right and a wide one on the left. And our More Columns, as stated before, contains option for customizing columns, and it also opens the Columns dialog box, as you can see when I click on it. So I'm just going to simply click Cancel. I'm going to put my insertion point, should still be in front of the F in free checking. In the Page Layout tab, in the Page Setup group, I'm going to click on the drop-down menu that displays the columns. I'm going to select More Columns, taking me back to the Columns dialog box. Again, as you'll go through the dialog box, you'll see that the preset column options are here. We also have the inserting a line between the columns. You'll see that often through activities. We can change the number of columns here by clicking the up or down arrow. We can adjust column width and spacing by clicking the different up and down arrows. You can also type in these boxes. A preview area appears off to this side. We also have where the box is checked by default that we make columns of equal width. You then now see that we can apply columns to the whole document or sections of a document. So in the number of columns box, we're going to type 3. So I'm going to hit the word up so I can see the 3 display. I'm going to check line between. This option places a vertical line in between the columns, and then I'm going to hit OK. You'll notice that the document is now formatted in 3 columns with the line in between each column. I'm going to position my insertion point before the S in Senior Preferred, which is down on the second page. The page break before that was added previously in this lesson will be removed in the next step. On the open the paragraph dialog box. So I'm not even going to leave page setup. I have a paragraph group here, page layout tab. I'm just going to simply click on the dialog box launcher. In the line and page breaks tab, in the dialog box, I'm going to deselect the page break before box. And then I'm going to simply click OK. When I do that, you'll notice the page break before command is removed from the document and the text moves to the previous page. On the page layout tab, I'm going to change my orientation now from portrait to landscape. I'm also going to change my paper size to legal. I'm going to click on the margins drop-down menu and I'm going to select custom margins. To open the page setup dialog box, I'm going to change the top and bottom margin settings to 0.5 inch. I'm going to apply this to the whole document and simply click OK. Now, you'll notice that we only have one page to work with. I'm going to go to my View tab and select one page for my zoom so that I don't have a scrolling feature on this particular document. Now, I'm going to place my insertion point in front of the V and value checking. I'm going to click the drop-down arrow to display the breaks menu. So I'm going back to the page layout tab, page setup group, breaks. Then I'm going to select column to insert a column break. When I do that, you'll notice that the value has now moved from one column to the next column. I'm going to do this again by simply placing this time my insertion point in front of the P and preferred checking, breaks, column break. And I'm going to do it one more time, placing my insertion point in front of the S in senior preferred checking, breaks, column break. Now, when I insert that column break that particular time, you'll notice that senior went on to the second page. We're going to select the 2 headings beginning with First Bank and Personal Checking Choices. So I'm going to scroll up to my first page. I'm going to simply highlight First Bank and Personal Checking Choices. In the drop-down arrow menu of columns, I'm going to change this back to a single column. So I'm going to hit column 1. You'll notice that when I do that a continuous section break is inserted, separating the heading into one column and the text underneath it formatted into 3 columns. So if you have your non-printing characters showing, and I would suggest that you do that by going to the Home tab and making sure your show hide button is highlighted or turned on so that you can see the non-printing characters, you'll notice that a double dotted line with the word section break continuous appears. We're going to press the Enter key after the S in choices to separate the section break and to ensure it goes across the entire page. All right. Now, we're going to center the two headings. So I'm going to highlight First Bank, Personal Checking Choices, and I'm going to hit Center Alignment on my paragraph group. And I'm going to save my work as I work through this document. The next thing that we're going to learn how to do is change column widths. Column widths can be even, or you can specify varying column widths. So I'm going to place my insertion point anywhere in the first column. I simply just put it right there in front of the F and free. On the page layout tab, in the page setup group, I'm going to click the drop down arrow to display the columns menu. I'm going to select on more columns, and this will open the columns dialog box. I'm going to type the number 4 in the columns box heading. So number of columns, I'm going to change it from 3 to 4. And I'm going to now adjust the width of my 4 columns. I'm going to change the width from 2.63 to 3 inches. Okay. So as I change the width, you'll notice because I have the check mark for equal column width selected, that it automatically adjusts the width for the next 4 columns. They're blocked out. I can't adjust them. If I uncheck that box, you'll notice that they become available and that I can adjust them as I need. I am going to turn it back on, and I'm going to hit OK. As I do that, you will notice that I now have 4 columns in my document, and I no longer have a second page. We're going to save our work as we continue to work through this document. The next thing that we're going to do is add a single column to an existing document with multiple columns. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change the left and right margins to 0.45. So I'm going to go to the Page Layout tab, Margins Group, Custom Margins. This opens the Page Setup dialog box, Margins tab, where it says left and right. Instead of it being 1 inch, I'm going to change this now to 0.5. Once I do that, I'm going to hit OK. Now, in the 4th column, in the last bulleted point, we're going to place our insertion point after the E in guarantee. And I'm going to press my Enter key on the keyboard. You should do the same. You'll notice that a new bullet comes up. We're going to remove this bullet by going to the bullet library, which is on the Home tab. And we're going to hit our drop down arrow and select None. We're going to type in that line, "We value your business," in all caps. And I'm going to then, after I type the text, select it. In the paragraph group on the Page Layout tab, I'm going to change the left indentation to 0. So I'm going to go to the Page Layout tab, Paragraph Group. You'll notice that I have a 0.25 indentation. I'm going to simply highlight that and hit 0 and Enter. And you'll notice that I no longer have any indentions or any spacing. In the spacing after, I'm going to change that from 10 points to 0 as well, but this time I'm going to click my down arrow. In the Page Setup group, I'm going to click the drop-down arrow to display the columns menu. And then I'm going to select 1. When I do that, you will notice that "We value" has now appeared on its own line at the bottom of the page. If we go back over to the E, to the guarantee in the fourth column, you'll see that a section break that is continuous appears. We're going to, you'll notice that it's still highlighted. I'm just going to bold and I'm going to center align that particular sentence, and I'm also going to change the font to 22 points. I am going to save this document as, so I'm going to go File, Save As, OneDrive Houston County Board of Education, Browse. I'm going to navigate to my Missdale folder, and I'm going to save this as Checking Final. Checking Final. And save. We're going to leave this document open to use in the next activity. Now we're going to learn how to insert a blank page into a document. Inserting a blank page. You can insert a blank page at any point within a document, the middle, the beginning, or the end. To insert a blank page, you're going to position your insertion point where you want the blank page to appear and simply click the blank page command in the Pages group on the Insert tab. So we're going to use our Checking Final document here. I am going to position my insertion point before the F in free checking. On the Insert tab in the Pages group, I'm going to click on a blank page. Insert tab, Pages group, blank page. Page 2 is a blank page, and the headings are on the left of page 1. Page 2 is a blank page, and the text is moved to page 3. Notice that word inserted 2 page breaks to create the blank page. So on page 1, you'll see where my insertion point was. You'll now see a page break, non-printing character appear. Page 2 is left blank intentionally because we wanted a blank page to be blank too. And then all of our text, all of our columns have now moved down to page 3. This is how to insert a blank page into a document. We're going to simply remove, there's 2 ways to remove these page breaks. We can simply hit the undo button, which is the quickest way. Or you can manually delete out the page breaks as discussed in Lesson 5, Part 1. This concludes our lesson on columns, how to set them up, create multiple columns within sections, and title those sections. You are now ready to begin Lesson 5, Managing Text Flow Column Activities.